Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Back in 1982, a group of African-American journalists came together to create Tidewater Media Professionals. The mission? To connect Black journalists and other media professionals working in the Hampton Roads area, but more importantly, to address negative coverage of Black people and to push for stories that more positively represented the Black community. Today, we are known as Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals, and we are celebrating our 40th anniversary. The story behind the story of HRBMP. That's next on Another View, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. The acronym is HRBMP, and it stands for Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals. For 40 years, this outstanding organization of dedicated media professionals of color have provided mentorship, scholarship, and advocacy for fair and balanced coverage of the Black community. HRBMP is an affiliate of the National Association of Black Journalists, which is the largest organization of Black journalists and media professionals in the world. And many of you are familiar with our guest today, beginning with former president of both HRBMP and NABJ, Barbara Ciara. Hey, Barbara.
Hello, good afternoon, Barbara.
I'm so glad you are here.
Thank you for having me.
Managing editor and evening anchor. She's the managing editor and evening anchor with WTKR News 3. Larry Rubama, he's the education and scholarship chair with HRBMP and columnist for the Virginian Pilot. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. Shelia Harrison, she's the budget chair and also the chair of the 40th anniversary celebration for HRBMP. Her day job is director of marketing and PR for Nauticus. Yes?
Well, actually, I'm retired, so maybe I should announce that here. But yes, so that's why I'm kind of like, okay.
That's news to us.
Oh,
Yes.
my. See? No, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who didn't know, but congratulations.
Thank you. But yes, I did do that for almost 23 years, so yes, I'm retired.
Well,
but thank you for having me
We
today.
are happy that you are here today. And guess what? Our very own Lisa Godley, who is president of HRBMP, and she's the producer of this fine program, Another View.
And always glad to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get started, we're going to have a great conversation. I want to play a piece that gives kind of the history of HRBMP.
Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals was founded in 1982. At that time, it was called Tidewater Media Professionals. According to founding member James Wright, it was a way to connect Black professionals working in media, but the mission was much more important than that: to address the continued negative portrayals of the Black community by media outlets and to push for more coverage of the positive contributions being made by Black people. Don Roberts was selected as the organization's first president. Tidewater Media Professionals became Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals in 1988, simultaneously transforming into an affiliate chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, the world's largest organization of Black journalists and media professionals. That same year, HRBMP was chartered as a nonprofit network of communicators dedicated to serving as a liaison between the Black community of Hampton Roads and the news media. Throughout our history, HRBMP has been named NABJ Chapter of the Year twice, in 1990 and 2005. Two former HRBMP presidents, Barbara Ciara and Arthur Fennell, have served as National Association of Black Journalists presidents. As part of our mission to serve this community, HRBMP has worked vigorously to aid the media professionals of tomorrow by providing more than $175,000 in college scholarships to aspiring journalists. During our 40 years in existence, HRBMP has proudly hosted more than 100 media-related events, often partnering with churches, schools, universities, and other community, civic, and public service entities. Starting in 1989, HRBMP created and hosted the Echoes of Excellence, which later became the Excel Awards. This black tie Academy Awards-styled event to recognize excellence in telling positive stories that showcase the Black experience in Hampton Roads. The Excel Awards was HRBMP's signature fundraising event for 17 years. In 2020, when the world shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic, HRBMP forged ahead. Dignitaries, city leaders, HRBMP members, supporters, and friends were on hand for the August 2020 launch of the Byron Burney Community Journalism Academy. The purpose? To engage people of all ages through teaching, mentoring, and journalistic experiences. The Academy was named in honor of the late Byron Burney, a former HRBMP president and media professional who was a mentor and guiding force for many aspiring journalists. Throughout our history, HRBMP has had 25 presidents and a roster of as many as 100 active members, making HRBMP the oldest and largest organization of minorities in media and communications in the Hampton Roads region.
And in full disclosure, I am a former president, and I'm also a member of HRBMP. So,
Yes.
Barbara, take us back to 1982. You were there when the organization started.
It literally was in someone's kitchen when we would have meetings. And there was a rotating number of people who would be a part of it. And I think we came together mainly because we felt that there was no one in the newsroom at that time who understood our journey into journalism or would protect us or mentor us in the way that we felt that many of our other colleagues were treated. So it came out of necessity, really, because there were stories of people getting passed over for top stories. There were other stories of not getting promotions when they were deserved. And so it was out of the abundance of need for direction and mentorship that we started to gather.
And, you know, a lot of times people think that media folks are adversaries because you're competing in terms of, you know, who gets the story first or who has the highest ratings and so forth. But Tidewater Media Professionals at that time and then HRBMP crosses all of the media landscape, doesn't it?
It was print, it was broadcast, and it was all of the affiliates here in the Hampton Roads region. We were friends and we looked out for one another. One good example of that I can tell you is that when Alveda was coming into Channel 13 and I was leaving to go to Wavy, we got together and exchanged notes and talked about everything from salary to makeup to, you know, who's got your back. So it started like that. We would help each other and be each other's ear.
When you didn't have that necessarily from others in the newsroom. There. So we actually have Alveda Yule on the phone. Hello, Alveda.
Hey, Barbara.
How are you? I'm great. So Barbara talked about how you all got together and exchanged information before as you were coming in and she was moving over.
That so warms my heart that you even mentioned that, Barb, because the truth of the matter is, and she's too humble to tell you this, she actually helped me get my start in television. I'd done radio for 6.5 years, loved the way it was going, had no intention of getting into television. And when she decided to move to her next station, she called me and said, "You've been a good reporter in radio. Why don't you come on board in television? I want to, you know, I want to present you to the managers." And I was like, "No, I'm good. I love radio." And she said, "Yeah, but you'll be very good in television too." And she trained me. She taught me how to put on makeup. I kid you not.
She already looked good.
So thank you, Barbara, Ciara, for literally helping me get my start. You're right. We're all really good friends.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty, I think, also that people sometimes don't understand. So, Lisa, as you stand on the shoulders of people, who have come before, I was president back in the 90s. Barbara was there from the beginning. Alvita was there. You've had a group of folks that have been able to continue to help. But what is it like today being president of HRBMP?
Oh, wow. Oh, it's a lot. But we are forging ahead as our logo. Should I call it a slogan or logo?
Yeah,
or
motto for going
our
forward.
motto.
Yes.
Yeah, we are forging ahead. It's just I am blessed to be surrounded by some incredible people, and I appreciate each and every one of them for all that they do. It's just so nice to be able to. Well, now we're back out in the community. Before, everything was we had to do it via Zoom.
Yes.
In
Zoom
fact,
for everybody.
when my administration came on, everything has been on Zoom up until recently, because we were even sworn in on Zoom. So it has been interesting how to do fundraisers and for scholarships and communicate and stay in touch and have social events, and everything has been on Zoom up until now. So it's been an interesting way to navigate.
Wow. So, Barbara, when did Tidewater Media Professionals become HRBMP, and why did you become an affiliate of NABJ?
That was all a part of the administration of Arthur Fennell. Tidewater Media Professionals kind of fizzled out, for lack of a better word, and we just did not keep it organized. But when Arthur caught wind of the seed of what we were doing, reorganized under a new name, and felt that we would have the gravitas of the larger organization and mission statement to help propel what we were trying to do locally. And so that's when we grew, and then Echoes of Excellence and the Excel Awards. And I have to, there are people at this table who did a lot to make those Excel Awards work. and you can jump in any time.
Okay, Shelia Harrison, retired.
Well, it was interesting. I mean, I got involved with HRBMP in 2000. I was fortunate enough to win an Excel Awards, actually a couple, I'll say that, in 1999. And so after that, it was sort of like a natural kind of thing to get more involved. And I remember in the early days working with Marvin Lake, who was, I think he was president at the time, and Charles Taylor, who was another former president. And for me, it just sort of fit. And we were mentioning earlier, I'm not a journalist, I'm a public relations professional. And so bringing in PR people into HRBMP was wonderful. There weren't as many, but we started to come in more and more.
And why was that important to you to be able to be a part of the organization, even if you weren't necessarily a working journalist?
Because I think there was so much there's like a misunderstanding that PR people and journalists were enemies, so to speak, because it's like, there was always this whole thing about, well, you come over to the dark side. The dark side was the PR people, you're on the dark side. And yet, but the thing is, journalists really are our friends. I mean, all of us are friends. We all help each other. And so for me, that gave us, in a sense, kind of gave you access to, if I'm on this side for PR trying to advocate for what I do, and it gave us access. So it was very important, I think, to show that we all can work together. We all work together.
And Barbara, there was to say that because on the national level, also they at some point allowed more PR people to come in as opposed to.
It's been a growth both nationally and chapter wise, and you're very right. I mean, the marriage between print and broadcast was easier than embracing PR and marketing for some of the journalists, because there was this opposing viewpoint of we had mixed messages going on. What we learned is that we worked very well with that structure because we needed PR and marketing to help get our message out. It's not necessarily our discipline as journalists to understand how that works, the messaging part, and not to mention the fundraising, which is foreign to many of the journalists, right? And many of our PR and marketing people were very adept at asking for money for our scholarships and, organizing us in a way where we fed the mission.
So, Larry, you speaking of scholarships,
Yes,
you are the
yes.
chair of the scholarship committee. It is very, very important for HRBMP, and it has been throughout its history, to mentor and to bring along students.
It's extremely important. I mean, I think about some of the young men and young women that have come through, and we've been a light to them, and they've been a light to us. Through the Byron Bernie's program, what we've been doing, you see these kids, we get together, we work on projects together. There's an appreciation from them of what we're doing. And then when you see them go on, we had a young man who's at Stanford right now who got one of the scholarships, who wrote this beautiful letter to me thanking me. We have another one who's at VCU right now. I mean, just you see the appreciation. And sometimes we lose that. Sometimes you think these young people don't understand and don't care, but when you see some of the people we have, we realize they do, they do care. And then just the workshops that we do. We had one last night, young lady who she got to see somebody who does what she wants to do, and to see her smile, you can see the excitement she had. It just warms you because you said, this is what it's about, giving back. And so many times we don't give back, and this is a chance to be able to give back. And when you see them, using those gifts and using the money, using that money, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to see that we are working on, we're carrying,
and carrying the torch forward.
Exactly.
Absolutely. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We would love to hear, especially from members of HRBMP, whether you're here currently or you live elsewhere, because I know a lot of people listen to us online. So 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Lisa, you were very instrumental in the starting of the Byron Bernie Journalism Academy. Tell people, what is that and how does it benefit the community?
It's a community journalism academy, and our goal is to connect people who are interested in learning to write, to tell stories, just how to do it and how to do it well. And we have, at our disposal tons of media folks, so we're here to help. And it has been just heartwarming to just be able to sit down and talk to people and work with people and bring in professionals that can connect with people. Larry was talking about just last night with Michaela, one of our consistent journalism students, academy students.
And she's in high school now, right?
She is in high school, and she came in, and it shocked me because, as I told you, we've been doing things on Zoom for a very long time. So this season we decided to start hybrid, so you could either come to a meeting or also continue to participate through Zoom. And when she walked into the room last night, I almost wanted to cry, because it was just like I had promised her. I've been promising her. She'd been with us for now 3 years, and I had promised her that I was going to get her with an animator. And Ken Nishimoto, our animator here at WHRO, agreed to do our 10-minute training. And I was just to see her light up and to be able to ask him questions and to show him some of her work, and he showed her some of his work. And it was such a moment. It just filled me.
Isn't that nice? That is just, Larry, go ahead.
Like I said, to see her, the excitement in her eyes, somebody who, because so many times we're doing what we do, and she got to see somebody who does what she wants to do. And sometimes that's all you need, is that light to light that fire in her. Who knows what that night will now do for the rest of her career? And giving her that light to realize, that fire, man, I know somebody who does this, who can help me. And just to hear her talk, I mean, she talks sometimes, but last night she was talking. It was great. I mean, she was asking questions.
It clicked.
Asking questions, and just you could just see her attention.
That light bulb moment.
Oh man, it was like boom.
That's fantastic. Barbara, tell us about Byron Bernie. Who the Academy is named after?
Well, first of all, he was an outstanding photojournalist, and that's how I got to know Byron at Channel 13 WVEC years ago. And we worked together on many different stories, and he was a hoot because he had a sense of humor that if you got to know Byron, sometimes you had to wait a second and then go, oh, okay, I remember. But he was very passionate about supporting Black journalists and Black photojournalists. He mentored so many people, which is why it just warms my heart that our organization has named this academy in his name, because this is how he lived. This is literally how he lived. He would teach so many people coming up in the business the techniques and shared his passion for the work. And he was ultimately the operations manager over there, but he did so much more in terms of growing new journalists into the business, which is our core mission anyway. But he was passionate about the organization. He was an excellent mentor. And what better way to honor him than to have an academy that basically is how he lived his life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Shelia, I know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of helping the community to understand how to approach the media, how to write a press release. Is that also a part of the academy?
Yes, it is. And I know that we have that we do offer that. I haven't participated myself just yet. I'm going to get on board. So as I said, just retired. So now I have time to really dig in and do some additional things. But I will say, too, that throughout the course of, like I said, my involvement with HRBMP, we have, I know I make it one of the things that I like to do is to interact with other PR the students at Norfolk State, students at Hampton, just to try to get them involved a little bit more in understanding PR and also to get involved with HRBMP.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What questions do you have about the media landscape today, and especially in terms of covering the Black community? Give us a call and let's talk. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So I know that part of the mission also is advocacy for the way that the community is covered. So I'd love to, I'm going to get a response from each of you about how you see that playing out. And also, how do you react to those who say, well, why do you have to have your own organization?
Well, I'll give you one example that you've heard before, and some of you may have, because I think it really speaks to the clarity of why diversity matters in the newsroom. Not just people on the air or those who write, but the people who manage the message and the people who do the hiring, all of that, it all matters. At the time that this happened, where I was talking to a young producer who was a young white female, she was writing copy about a crime story in Norfolk. And I went to her with the copy and I said, tell me what's wrong with this copy. And I said, read it out loud. And she said, Norfolk police are looking for a Black man, 6'1", 180 pounds. And I said, so am I. And so she finally got it, that this could have been anyone.
Right.
You know, that this description pretty much condemned, half the population of Black men walking on the street. It was not specific, and it basically put in the mind of the viewer that Black men are criminals. So if you do not have that background, if you've not lived that life, if you've not walked that journey, if you've not had that conversation with your Black child about their interactions, then you don't know that general description is so condemning of a race and ethnicity. So we need producers, we need managers, we need all these eyes to be open to different experiences in the newsroom, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and writing as well.
Exactly, and even as a former news director, the whole idea of how subconsciously, I think for a lot of people, but they would put the picture of the Black person being accused of a crime, but if it was a white person who was being accused of the crime, it was usually just copy, and so you're reinforcing again, and that was something that had to be changed. Something that NABJ and HRBMP, we look at things like that because it really matters. Why, Larry?
As you were talking, I thought about the fact that they named me a columnist 2 years ago, and I didn't want to do it. And then they asked me twice, and then the third time I realized I needed to do it. Not because I want to do it, but I know I need to speak for our people. And so I go out and I find stories, just something different. I don't want to write just about the same athlete who can score all these points. Let me find something else about these people to let people know we have other people out there. They're not just these great athletes, but we're people. And I think that is so important because a lot of times we just get the same star players all the time, but we got stories as well. We got stories as well, and I think that's important that we tell those other people's stories.
Shelia?
Right. So I would bring a look at it from obviously from a PR perspective and the situations that I found myself in, and in terms of the people that I work with, understanding that they also have to be open to hearing other ideas and hearing other perspectives, because we can only bring to the table what we know. So for me, I just think it's important that we have that representation, especially in the PR arena, so that we can help convey these messages to the media as well from the standpoint of our own companies. So it's very important all the way around for me.
Lisa?
I talking to young people, and whether it's with the academy or over mentoring students at Granby High School, I'm always telling them, we need folks behind the scenes. We need people making those decisions, because it really matters. I remember sitting in a newsroom meeting, and they were talking. T.D. Jakes had come into town, and I was the only person of color sitting in that meeting, and nobody knew who he was. And I'm like, no, they kind of just drew a line through his name on the assignment board. And I was like, wait a minute, he's huge, and they're like, okay, well, you want to go? Yeah, sure, I will. Definitely, I'll go over it. But it was just, it's just so important, because if you don't have different perspectives, if you don't have somebody that's going to actually understand and know, you're lost. You're only telling one side or one part of the story.
And what we've tried to convey as an organization, both chapter level and national, is diversity is good for business. I mean, let's face it, because if you speak to the great portion of people who are listening or reading to you, and you have something that they can relate to, then they will watch or they will read or they will listen. So it's good business.
It absolutely is. If you're just joining us, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals with HRBMP members Barbara Ciara, Lara Rubama, Shelia Harrison, and Lisa Godley. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Let's talk to Douglas in Norfolk. Hi, Douglas. You're on the air.
Hello. How are you today?
Okay. How are you?
Good. Great panel.
Thank you.
Question. What if you're someone who has a journalism degree, never really worked in the field? What advice would you give to that person that may be wanting to try and get into the field? Do you have any type of resources for someone like that?
Okay, let me let our panel answer you. Who wants to start? Lisa?
Well, I'll start. Have you ever done an internship?
No. It's not for me. This is really a question for someone else that I know who has this journalism degree. They graduated from ODU. Now they're doing something completely different. I'm just trying to see, and if they have the desire to try and now get into the field, what would be your recommendations?
Well, they call me the queen of interns around here. I would tell them to volunteer. They can come over here and volunteer. And just
here
watch,
at HRO.
Yeah, and just watch and learn. That's right. They don't necessarily know where we are. They can come over here and just watch and learn. A couple days a week, evenings a week. Just come over and sit and observe. And I'll definitely show you everything I know. So.
And, there are an abundance of journalism organizations that you can join as a associate or a working professional, where you can make connections with others, and that might help, lift that person into the career that they desire. But, it's not just your granddaddy's business anymore. I mean, you can have a Facebook page where you start reporting and writing your own stories. You can do that on Instagram, and then you can build a body of work to present to someone and say, here's some of the work that I've been doing independently as a journalist, and how about you to have a look at that and see if I can fit into your organization. So there are many different ways to, get into the business now.
Does that help you, Douglas? We hope so.
Helps a great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So what do you see as the difference between journalists today and journalists from our generation, Barbara? Let's say, is there a difference in terms of the work ethic, in terms of the work that's being done, or are we continuing to build a stronger and stronger cadre of reporters and producers and others in the media business?
I'm sure everybody's got something to say about that. But what I'll say is that I don't think you can paint with a broad brush any generation. I do know that we all have our individual experiences, and the one thing that vexes me is when somebody gets out of the business and opines about the good old days and how things aren't the way they used to be. No, they're not the way they used to be, and they shouldn't. We should always evolve, and we should always be new, and we should always be fresh. I learn a lot from the young people in my newsroom, from their experience and their viewpoint, and I think we should always be open to that. What are the differences? Well, I will tell you, one big difference is how much we give to this business versus the work balance we did not have back in the day. I do think that some of today's journalists understand the need to have a good work balance because many of us burned ourselves out in this business by living, breathing, smelling news every day of the week, every hour of the day. So that, I think, is the biggest difference, where I think they knew something we didn't, and that was that they needed to have a life. You know, like I told a girlfriend of mine, she says, you were talking about the business. It's been great to you. I said, oh, yeah. In the 80s, I was living my best life. I said, yeah, I had a husband. I had a dog. I had a cat. I had a house. I said, in the 90s, I still had the cat. So I mean, if you don't take care of your home fires, you know, then all you will have is this business.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think about all the hours and everything that we put in. Larry, you're in the newspaper business. Number one, newspapers are struggling. And particularly with the Daily Press and the Virginian Pilot, there have been massive cutbacks. How has that affected the minority balance in the newsroom? And you know, are those who are left to carry the whole torch, or are they still excited?
Everything you said. Okay. Everything you said. It's difficult. You know, I can remember when I started at the Pilot, we had 23 sports reporters.
Ooh, wow.
Yes.
What year did you start?
I started in 1999.
Okay. And you had 23 then.
Today, with the two papers combined, we have 4 full-time reporters doing it all. So I get people who always saying, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? I said, if you only knew, I can't say it. I can't say nothing to them because they wouldn't understand. So I think it's even that much more important. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, Denise Watson, who runs our features thing, she's one of the people on the board, up there. And I look to her because we always feed off of each other. We're the last two that are still there from when I got there. That's why a lot of times I'll talk to Roger Chesley, who's always a good person, a good sounding board to be able to talk to.
He's a roundtable pundit on our show often, yeah.
And he's, he emails me about different things all the time, and we just be able to talk to somebody is good because it is difficult. You feel like sometimes you're trying to carry your whole community on your back, and you can't do it all the time, but you still want to be fair to our community at the same time. So it's very difficult now, and I think we don't even have a building. We used to have a huge building, and now our building is very, very small. We've probably gone from 150 or maybe 200 reporters to editors and photographers and everything to like maybe I think 50 something. So,
wow.
But the thing is that we still keep trying to put out the best paper we possibly can each time, and that's what you try to do. That's what you strive for. As my mother told me, you can only control what you can control. What you can't control, don't worry about it. Just do the best that you can.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things I try to strive and try to talk to these younger people coming up, to let them know, you got to work hard. You got to continue. You got to be able to write. You try to push all those things. And I get so frustrated when I talk to especially young black reporters, and the first thing they say is, I said, what you want to do in this business? I'm thinking they're going to tell me something really profound. I want to be on ESPN. I just want to write them off. I said, get out of my, It's more than that. It's more than that. I told him Stephen A. Smith used to be a columnist and a reporter before he did what he's doing.
He did.
And Michael Wilbon, same thing. And so that's the frustration now is I think these kids now is that, and I don't want to put a paintbrush over all of them, but a lot of them, they just want to just be given. They just want, no internships, no nothing. I just want to be at ESPN right now.
0 to 60.
Yeah. 0 to 60.
Alvita, I know you're still on the line with us, and I know that after your retirement, you've gone into the representation. You represent reporters as agent. What do you notice is the difference in today's journalists compared to when you were sitting at the anchor desk?
I'm sitting here listening to Larry and saying, "Oh my goodness, yep, all of the above." Because, as a journalist, when I was on air, for close to 40 years, it was all about, just basically making not just the next paycheck, but doing, digging deep into a story or doing follow-ups and things like that. And Larry's right. I mean, everybody now wants, has this thought process of going to network and that sort of thing. It's what now is called the imposter syndrome. Everybody wants to emulate somebody else or look big. Social media has made people assume that everybody has to be big in order to be important. And it's not true at all. If you will literally, and I don't mean this in any negative sense of the word, you will fall on your face if you don't recognize who you really are on the inside first. And we worked really hard to work on who. That's why Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals was established in National Association of Black Journalists to recognize who we really are on the inside first, and bring that out to the rest of the community. So, I work for. Well, I'm the vice president also, not only for Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals, but also HD Reps, which means high definition representation, and I represent broadcasters all over the country. And so I've seen a huge change.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I came to Hampton Roads back in 1993 as the assistant news director at WTKR, and if it were not for particularly Barbara, but generally HRBMP, I don't know how I, as a manager in a newsroom, being the only African-American manager in the newsroom, would have survived because there are certain things that happen. As a news director or as an assistant news director, I also had to walk a very fine line between friendship with the people that I managed, and being able to have someone to lean on when I didn't know what to do, and so between NABJ and HRBMP, there was a family there that I could turn to and say, oh, this happened, or what do you think about this? It's just getting that normal career advice that others may take for granted in an industry that doesn't necessarily happen in our industry.
Yeah, it didn't. If we didn't have those friendships, it would have been difficult for us to negotiate, which is another thing that came up in the 80s and 90s among many of our membership. Like, how do we share that kind of information? And I said, we just share that information, which is what I did when Jonathan Costin came to the area. And I said, do not take less than this, and you actually have to have those kinds of conversations with people to be helpful so that they understand that they won't get undersold. There's nothing that makes a person more angry than when they accept a job and they know they could have gotten more.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, we certainly tried to make that a part of what we were doing in as far as sharing information among our membership.
So, Shelia, something's happening on Saturday. What's happening on Saturday?
Oh, right. On Saturday, Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals will be celebrating its 40th anniversary. Yay, that's right. Yes, 40th anniversary. So, the way it was set up was, so we started to have this initial conversation about how we're going to celebrate the anniversary. And we knew that we wanted to celebrate the Byron Burney Journalism Academy. We also wanted to celebrate all the contributions that HRBMP has made over the 40 years. So we were having this conversation. It was like, okay, what can we do? And of course, we were still sort of thinking pandemic time, but then we said, no, let's go ahead and try to do something in person. So we all agreed, let's do something in person. And let's also use this as an opportunity to do some fundraising, because the organization still needs to raise money in order to carry out its mission, in order to award those scholarships and offer these programs. So that's how we came upon this 40th anniversary fundraiser. And a team of us got together. And so we ended up connecting with Norfolk State. Alvita, who's on the call, she was our person who kind of went to Norfolk State and said, hey, can we do this together? And right away, Norfolk State said, yes, let's do it.
Thank you, Alvita.
Thank you, Alvita.
Yes. They said, let's do it. And from there, we were off to the races in terms of planning our program, determining what we were going to do. Madam President here was able to say, okay, well, look, here's some things I want to do to make sure we incorporate into the program. So on Saturday, starting at noon, people would be able to come out and just experience Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals, in terms of we will have someone from Norfolk State kind of tell us some things about, to greet us and just be a part of the program. And then we also have music.
Yeah, music.
There's entertainment. Michael Minix will be here to help us. And then we're going to talk about the history, of course, of HRBMP. There's some special awards that are going to be presented. They're all, we don't really know who's going to get these awards.
Are tickets still available?
Tickets are still available. We have a limited number of tickets that are still available. You go to HRBMPinc.com, the website, and from there it will lead you to where you can purchase the tickets for $40. And we do have some tickets that are still available. They are a limited number, though, because we've been very, very fortunate that we've had a lot of sponsors come aboard. And so between the sponsors and people who already bought tickets, everything is looking really great for us.
How do media organizations feel about organizations like HRBMP or NABJ? The organization themselves. Barbara, when you were president of NABJ, for example, that required you to do a lot of traveling, a lot of work on the national level. Was your organization supportive? Or are organizations like, I don't know?
You know, I think that if you have a timetable, there are periods where they were supportive and would give you the time and pay for your travel, and then you were not in the budget, and they would not give you the money to travel, and they would not support you, but they may give you the time to go. So we've gone from corporations where they would budget that in to it's a nicety, not a necessity. So they stopped supporting many of the I noticed that being on the board in the 90s and then later on being elected as president, that we had board members who did not get corporate support for their travel, and then it came out of the budget of the national office to get board members to fly and travel to board meetings. So it has been an up and down process, getting the corporate folks to understand that this is something they could benefit from, because particularly when you go to a convention where there is professional development, lots of workshops, they can come back and have workshops with their own teams about what they've learned. And so we needed to kind of convey the message that this is not a party week. This is a business week where you're actually learning more about the J in the journalism. So it's been up and down support on the corporate level.
What is an NABJ convention like, Lisa?
As Barbara mentioned, there's a lot to learn. I mean, every time I go, I'm like writing down story ideas.
And it travels
ideas,
around the country, right?
And it goes all around. Our next one is in Birmingham, Alabama. Excited about that. Very historic place. But we just came back from Las Vegas. But it is.
Did you go to Vegas, Larry?
Nah.
You didn't go to Vegas, Larry?
I did not.
It's just a wonderful opportunity. I love being able to bond and seeing people that I haven't seen in forever. You're sitting in conferences with people and you're learning, and you get to sit by somebody you haven't seen in, say, 3 or 4 years because you worked in a different market with them, and it's just the support that's there. It's a big family. I think I could pretty much say that as a definition.
So how did COVID impact the work of journalists in general? Well, let me rephrase that. Combination of COVID and George Floyd. What was the impact on particularly Black journalists as we covered these stories?
You start, Larry.
Yeah, I tell you. I know I ended up writing a lot of stories about COVID. A lot of people were talking about how, COVID wasn't real. And I lost a brother, my grandmother, aunt, and uncle. And it gave me a chance to kind of write. I had a lot of people who didn't believe in it, who then wrote me and said, you know what, I'm sorry for your losses, and you've given me a different view on it. That's all I was trying to do. And then I had one, I think, as the season started, we started to be able to go to games. I have 2 sons, and they were like, Dad, we don't want you going out there. We can't lose you. Because they lost their mother in 2008. So it gave me a chance to write that story again. So it just kind of opened. I used it as a chance to be able to open people's eyes, to make them realize, I know you might have that ignorant way of your thinking, but just know that there's other views out there. Just realize it is real. And I think that was important for me. I think the other thing about COVID was it made you work harder as a reporter because you couldn't go to no games. You couldn't go to these different things. So you're trying to find these different stories out there and still making an impact.
Made an impact.
Yeah, and I was able to find many stories there of just people struggling and going through it, and not just from the sports angle, but from another angle. And I thought it made me work harder as a reporter to really try to find those stories that can make an impact and let people know, wow, this is what's going out there. So it was tough. It was difficult, though.
What about you, Barb?
That's remarkable. I'm just sitting here listening to Larry talk. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I remember a particular story you wrote. I think I called you because it was so impactful. Just the raw feelings, that were a part of that. Yeah.
Well, I do think that it was an opportunity for all of us as journalists to actually keep the eye focused on what was happening regarding race in this country. And when George Floyd happened, and then we watched across the country as there were many, many peaceful demonstrations with people expressing their outrage. And then globally, we started reporting around the globe, people were outraged about what happened. And I got this sense as we were writing stories about this that, am I watching a turning of the page where everyone, no matter what color you are, understands this inhumanity to man that was happening? And I said, I just hope it lasts. As we were reporting on this, I said, I hope these eyes remained open. I started getting calls from people who are not African American. Tell me about your experience. Can you tell me what to do? I said, you need to go out and see and listen and learn. It's not something I can tell you to do as an African American. You just need to open your eyes. If your eyes are open, keep them open. So there was this big spring of awareness that was happening post George Floyd. And I said, I'm going to mark this moment in my mind, and I just pray that the eyes remain open.
So, Lisa, how did HRBMP and membership as a whole support each other during this time? Was there?
Well, we continued, like as I mentioned, with the whole Zoom. That was the only way we could connect was through Zoom. So we made sure we were always doing that and trying to. And more recently, people were reaching out saying, there were mental health issues. People were struggling, especially with COVID, and you're not connecting with people and that kind of thing. We brought in a mental health professional via Zoom to be there to answer people's questions and to talk to them and try to help people get through, whatever they were struggling with at the time.
Alvita, what about you?
Well, there were several things I noticed. One of the hardest things for my industry is finding jobs for people in this industry across the country was the world shut down. So, nobody was moving. Nobody was going anywhere. If you were already in a newsroom or, in any form of journalism or broadcast, you were pretty much staying where you were. So it became where I really couldn't move people anywhere because you couldn't go into newsrooms. You couldn't go anywhere or do anything. But at the same time, it was also a pivotal point for African Americans, and the eyes of the world were on, the brown skinned people and who we really are and what we really represent. And I think people began to see us differently in a stronger, more positive light. It really did. It pointed a finger at us as to who you really are, and it actually showed that. And so what it did too is it opened up cultural diversity in newsrooms. It opened up mega diversity in other positions. As a consultant, as a broadcast journalist, or being able to get jobs like diversity hires became a big deal. Like back in the 70s, it was EEOC. Now it became total diversity hires, and many, many, many more of us are now in the industry, not just trying to prove ourselves, but to be who we've always been. Strong and good, good people.
Sheila, your perspective?
Well, what I would say too is I've sort of seen the same thing happen. So I really kind of agree with what everybody has said on this one.
Okay. So we've got about 4 minutes left. I want to know what you all think about what's the next step. What's coming up for HRBMP? You've got the academy, we've got the mentorship and the scholarship, working with journalists and so forth. So what's the next big thing?
Madam President.
No pressure.
The next big thing. No big pressure. Well, one of my goals is definitely to take the academy on the road. I want to get over to Norfolk State University and work with those students over there, get over to Hampton University, get with those students over there, and continue with the students that we've been working with, and just get to locations where we can be there for them, so that we can help them and show them what we do, and answer their questions and open the world to the next generation of journalists.
Who can join HRBMP?
Anybody.
Of any race?
Yeah.
That is one thing that this organization has never closed its doors to, has it, Barbara?
It's true. I think the most comic moment was when we were in the Wells Theater, and there was a Daily Press reporter, a white woman, who got up to the mic and said, "Yes, I'm a member of HRBMP," and she kind of did a little bow, and it was really pretty funny, because I think that there were many sponsors in the audience at that point who did not understand or know that there were members of the Pilot and the Daily Press who happened not to be people of color, who were members of the organization. And so it opened their eyes, I think, at that point. So it's very interesting that as long as you believe in the mission to uplift journalists of color and train new journalists of color, you can be a part of that team that makes that mission happen.
Absolutely. And are you still looking, Lisa, for new members?
Absolutely. All the time. Call us now. Go on the website, hrbmpinc.com. Come on. We welcome you with open arms. Now's the time.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, too, is, like we said, at one point, HRBMP had 100 active members. I mean, and that was across the board, whether it was journalists, PR people, and we'd like to see that come back. So I think one of the focuses that I'd like to see us move forward with is, to build on what Lisa said, is really engaging. So we have to get out there and get our message out there even more, so that the newer people in the industry, there's always people coming into this market, will understand how HRBMP can help them. Mm-hmm. And we want them to be a part of the HRBMP family.
And we also have affiliate members that were former members of HRBMP, right? That belong now or not?
Well, every former president remains a president. Yes. I mean, remains a member.
A member, right.
So, and I think that Herb Lowe may have been not included on the beginning, but he was a Pilot reporter and was also.
So Herb was here. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was with the Pilot, and probably his claim to fame is he had one of the longest Excel awards on record. I think it went for 5 hours.
You're kidding.
Yeah. Part of it was he wouldn't stop talking. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, happy anniversary, HRBMP. And Sheila, tell people where they can get tickets one more time.
They can get tickets by visiting hrbmpinc.com website. Tickets are $40, and we'd love to see you there.
Okay, and you can also become a member of HRBMP. There are different levels of membership, so just check out the website, find out what's going on.
Absolutely.
And so we hope that you've enjoyed learning about HRBMP and that you will engage with this organization when you have questions, especially on how to engage with the media, because we all get those calls. How do I get a reporter to come out and cover my story? We'll tell you the secret. Please share this show with a friend or a loved one. Go to anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And don't forget to sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Next week on Another View, it's Another View on Health with cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. We're going to talk about the difference between a cold, of the flu, and COVID. So tune in. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Special thanks to Paul Bibbo for filling in as producer for today's broadcast. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Be sure to get your COVID booster and your flu shot. Get ahead of the germs that are already here, folks. And let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.